Hey folks, today we're going to do a repair video, and this is going to be involving a very common problem that I see with more deer capes than I'd like to admit, and that is cutting the brisket too short. Now, I'm not yelling at you guys, but I wish that we could, have a little bit better understanding of where we need to make our cuts on a deer. Maybe this video will help. I've had way too many people say, "Oh, I left the whole thing for you." And sure enough, there's, the whole back side of the deer straight down to the tail. I don't need the tail to mount a shoulder mount. I need the brisket and the chest. And surely enough, half the time I've got the tail and the back hide, but the brisket is cut way up too short and we're missing armpits and brisket. Take a look at what I've got to deal with today. So this is what we're dealing with today. And these capes are actually from the same client. He brought me 2 deer. He did really good on this one. This is a great example of, yes, it's got both the armpits here, this brisket line, and then some below that. We probably won't need all this, but it's always good to have extra. This is a no-no. We hardly have any armpit here. We've got a little bit of the brisket line, but this should be coming down to here. I need several more inches here. So this is just completely missing. And this is the form we're mounting on, which, has a pretty nice, long, defined brisket. Honestly, I should have told the client, no, we got to go with a short form or cut this up, and that's a shame. If you're paying this much to have a deer mounted and it's your special trophy, you shouldn't, have to go with a really short mannequin just because, you didn't leave a few inches on your cape. So I'm going to go with this deep-chested mannequin. And we are just going to have to make some repairs to this. So this is my plan. I'm going to rob a part of the brisket from the one that was cut really long and put it on the short one and blend it in. I went ahead and put this, this long cape on the mannequin, kind of got it in place because I don't want to cut this one too short just to give the other one some brisket. So I made sure I got as much out of this as I could. And now I'm just going to trim this brisket off of this deer head, since I always like to have a little extra here at the back, and this one had plenty of extra. I'm going to cut it close as I can. I would do this on any deer head, trim off the excess along the back. It's not a lot, but here is some extra brisket, and now let's see how that fits up with our short cape. Honestly, from first look, pretty terribly. This brisket is in nowhere near the same color as this one. It's white, you see what we've got going on here, but I plan to paint this in and blend it, and I think we are going to make a pretty good match. All right, now I've stitched this piece on. Stitched it together. It still doesn't match, but I'm not worried about that for now. Let's get this mounted up and see what we can do. All right, so now the sewn patch is in place, and I am going to airbrush this in a little bit. So before I start airbrushing, I'm going to get out my can of spray adhesive, and what I'm doing with this is applying some to the center of the brisket there. And you know how briskets come together in the center with that cowlick of hair that stands up down the center line. I'm forcing the hair into that position using a wire brush and the spray adhesive. Trust me, no type of hair gel I've found will really do this, so the spray adhesive has what it takes. But now I'm taking my airbrush. This is a single action Pache airbrush, and I've got it loaded with some dark brown lacquer paints. These are Life Tone lacquer airbrush paints. And depending on how far back I airbrush and how wide or narrow I adjust the nozzle, I can take it from a light brown down to a very dark brown, almost black. And I'm just going to put a light coat on first over this white area to try to blend in the legs and the armpits. And if you notice, down the very center of the brisket where the hair comes together, it's fairly dark. It seems to be almost black along those areas. So I'm going to lay it on a little thicker right there.
and kind of create a more dark transition right down that center line. And I just do this by opening the airbrush up a little wider to let out more paint, and also painting just a little bit closer. This whole process took me about 4 minutes from start to finish, and I pretty much filmed this in real time so you could see the whole thing. Just a little more blending here of the browns. I'm trying to create that textured look. You know, deer hair is not just solid brown, so I want to add a little bit of light to dark coloration of the hairs here. And this next thing I'm going to bring out is a pretty cool product, and it is some tile grout. This is available at your local hardware store, Lowe's or Home Depot. It's basically dust, but it's a dusty grout that you would use for tiling floors and tile applications like that. And I've got this here in sort of a medium brown, and it's just amazing how that adds kind of dimension to the color, as well as toning it down to a matte finish, because that airbrush paint tends to go on kind of unnaturally shiny. So I'm just dusting this on, and that spray adhesive that's on there is helping to really grab this. And, you know, would you want to take a brush to this brisket now? No, and I'm going to tell the client this is more of a look but don't touch sort of repair. Leave it alone. It's not going to just, you know, go falling off. It's going to stay, but you don't want to brush this out after. In fact, I'm going to take either some hairspray, works well, or a matte finish sealer, and lightly spray over this once it's done, and that's going to set everything in. And it will last. You just don't want to, be putting your hands all over it or brushing it out. But look at that. Just a couple minutes ago, that was bright white, and now we've got a very convincing looking brisket here. And there is the final product. I think the client is going to be very happy. I don't think you'd be able to tell that this thing was missing most of its brisket and armpits. I'm honestly surprised at how well I was able to blend this in, especially considering the patch really didn't match well. But I call this a win, and I really hope this helps somebody out, since we taxidermists have to deal with this at least several times a year. But please follow my YouTube here at Amy's Animal Art for more instructional taxidermy videos.